Thank you so much for listening to Paper Girl, a podcast for creatives all over Tulsa. My name is Melody. I'm the host. I'm the co-owner of Meadow Market Books and More in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And today, finally, after actual months and months and months of us trying to get the stars to align, I have with me author of Dragon Blind and forthcoming Dragon Bride, Iman Christians. Thank you so much for coming on, Iman.
Yay! Glad I'm here finally.
Yay! And like just before the storm of a new release too.
Yes. Super exciting. So at the end of the month, yes.
Yeah. So why don't we walk listeners through, if they haven't been one of the dozens of people I've convinced to pick up Dragon Blind, tell us a little bit about Dragon Blind and your process with the Lightbearer series.
Yeah. So Dragon Blind was really inspired by my love for Game of Thrones. I loved Daenerys Targaryen, but I hated the way that the series ended with her. I just felt like it was very unfair. And so that got me thinking about how I would have rewritten Daenerys. And that is how the Lightbearer series and Dragon Blind came to be. So Dragon Blind is about a blind princess. She's cast out from her family. If you are not in warrior shape, they say, then you are cast out of their society, even though she's a princess and royalty. So she actually flourishes in being an outcast, learns that she can connect with dragons. And from there, she gets 3 dragon eggs. She's got to get them to safety. But I would say this book is mostly about a person figuring out that she's enough and that she doesn't have to change herself to be loved.
I love that. So I have 1,000 questions, and I really wanted to dig into your brain from the jump, but now especially, like, for about 45 minutes before we met up, I finished my advanced copy of Dragon Bride. So now I have a million more questions.
Yes.
Because I've been billing Dragon Blind as the best book I've read in 2026.
Oh, thank you.
And now it's really a tie. I just genuinely have enjoyed this so much. But thinking back onto the very beginning of Dragon Blind, we get to see Princess Asha in her element down with the dragons. Do you have like a thought of like how that time period went? Because we get little snippets of her time in the dragon pits, but we don't really get like the full picture of that.
Yeah, just little snapshots on how she, how basically they helped raise her and that they take care of each other and form kinship with each other, which is interesting because she doesn't have that kinship with her own family. They aren't supposed to be talking to her. She has a brother that occasionally does, Quasi, who talks to her, but the others really just ignore her. Her mother dies at an early age, and so it's just her and the dragons. And the others in the dragon pits really ignore her because they know she's royalty, and so they want nothing to do with her either. So these are the first relationships that she has, and it really does carry through into the found family she gets as she journeys with those dragon eggs.
So Asha is blind. She's blinded by an injury, or so we think.
Yes.
As a young child, and one of the things that really like blew my mind about Dragon Blind was I was maybe halfway through the book, maybe even like 75% before I kind of like braced myself. I guess it would have been the moment where she does gain sight. And I realized that for most of the book, I had only been given her world through other senses and then visual descriptions in dialogue. Talk to me about writing a story rooted in a disability.
Yeah. So I really wanted to showcase it as a strength, and that's how I wrote it. But me not being blind, not being from the blind community, I had to do a lot of research. So I joined Blind Talk. I started reading up on other books that had blind characters, which there are really not that many. And then I would reread the things I wrote and try to experience it as a blind person. And there's just so many things that we take for granted, that a blind person has to navigate when they're moving throughout the world. And so that was a challenge trying to figure out how do I get her from point A to point B. And that's why there are two characters that you see the world through. And that's part of the reason why I added that second character, because there's just certain things for the reader's point of view that would be helpful for them to be able to see. But it's interesting when I talk to readers, what they really love is experiencing the world through Asha's point of view.
It's incredibly immersive. What was the decision to have that be like an indicator? I'm trying not to do spoilers, but I think I'm just going to have to put a giant spoiler alert on this, because if you haven't read Dragonblind, you're already behind.
Yes, exactly.
But from here on out, I'm going to speak pretty candidly about Dragonblind. I will approach Dragon Bride with as few spoilers as possible until we get like closer to the end, and then I can warn out. But so spoilers. So pick up Dragonblind if you haven't, and then return to this point in the episode. But how did you what was the process on deciding if that blindness would be the indicator that somebody might be bonded with a dragon?
Yeah, so I first got the idea, and I'm blanking on the character's name from Game of Thrones, but it's the younger sister, Arya, I think is her name.
Yeah.
And she is blind at one point. It's actually given to her as a punishment. But I was thinking, what a gift to experience the world and to hone her craft as a blind person. And that's what got her to take out the assassin that was coming after her. Well, she was able to kind of recreate this blindness that she could navigate, but this assassin couldn't. And I was like, okay, so what if we approach this blindness as a strength? Mm-hmm. And that is how the idea came to be. How do we make this a strength and something that connects her to the dragons? So she bonds with the dragons and is able to see the world basically through their eyes.
I love this. I'm also thinking a lot about the parallels in both books to like popular larger fiction, like Fourth Wing, mm-hmm. because this is very much, and if you've read and you've watched Game of Thrones, then you definitely see the parallels to Daenerys. Mm-hmm. But there are also a lot of parallels to Fourth Wing, mm-hmm. especially in the way like the magic systems work.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so where's the timeline on your exposure to Fourth Wing?
Yeah, so I was on the bandwagon with everyone else. I stopped reading for a long time, probably just to get myself through grad school. And then everybody was talking about Fourth Wing. I was like, okay, I used to read and I loved it. And I thought, what a cool way to interact with dragons, to make them main characters, because a lot of times dragons are side characters, mm-hmm. and I wanted mine to be main characters. So that is, I would say, the common thread to Fourth Wing. I also loved, everybody loves the relationship between Xaden and Violet too. So I knew I wanted the romance part to really run strong. But yeah, I'd say the strength for me out of Fourth Wing is the dragons. I love them so much.
Yes, it was incredibly fun because, we're getting a surprise extra Fourth Wing book mm-hmm. this fall. But once I finished Onyx Storm, which of course I finished in like 2 days.
Yes.
I was like, oh, well, I don't get to hang out with these dragons anymore. Like, I can go back and reread, but it's just not the same. Like, mm-hmm. getting to see, because dragons are, an essential element in so many fantasy stories. But they're never the main characters. They never have like personalities beyond like, oh, he stomped his feet and
Uh-huh.
snorted. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I want to like get inside the mind of a dragon a little bit. So what is how did you approach getting inside the minds of your dragons?
Yeah, I tried to think about like how a dragon would see a human or a mortal and their relationship. So Drakkar is probably the main dragon character in the first book. And I was just thinking how funny it would look for him to watch Asha and her struggle over her love life and how silly it must look to him, especially since he's lived a very long life compared to her and sees the world in a very different way. And he even calls her little one because she is so young. And he has had a great love in his life. And this is another spoiler. His mate actually dies. And so to see him, her struggle over Adriel just really is kind of funny and silly to him. But also, I really enjoyed writing him as someone who hates men, hates males. What are you doing with him? You are so much better than him. And really helping her see her worth because she's been told her entire life that she is nothing and that she will bring nothing to the family. So to have I like to think of Drakkar as this positive reinforcement that she needs. She is the positive voice that she always needed as a child.
I love it. And I love him. I put in my Goodreads review for Dragon Bride. Men are on thin ice.
Yes.
Oh my God. It is just left and right with these men just pulling stunts and I threaded at one point and I was like, Ashki, you little mosquito incel, leave her alone.
Exactly. What are you doing?
Just go away. And it's like, damn, for somebody who lived her whole life in the dragon pits, y'all are so hungry for her.
Yes.
Like, go away. And oh, man, just incredible. I did want to know, you have a lot of really unique names that, you know, especially as somebody who is white and interacts with a lot of very white fiction. I don't run into names like this. Tell me about how you named your characters.
Yeah, I wanted this to not be a European world. There's probably still some callbacks to European culture, like castles and things like that. But some of the names, I really wanted them to be African inspired, and so I spent a lot of time looking into the different African mythology, and I couldn't settle on one, so I'm pulling on a lot of them when I'm naming things. But I really did want them to feel unique, to be its own world, and something that you haven't experienced before. What I really love about the books, and I try to play on this even more in the second book, is that you get to experience different parts of the world. So this one might be all at sea at one point. We start actually with Asha. She's in the middle of a desert. I wanted it to look different than what people are typically used to.
Yeah, I love it. Are we gonna we didn't have a map in the front of Dragon Bride,
No,
did we? Or Dragon Bride?
I so want one because there's so many names, especially in the second book. I started to draw a map out so just to keep myself grounded.
So maybe a map in book 3.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I
Yes.
love that. And then probably my last question specifically about the book series themselves. In Dragon Bride, we've got some little dragons, and I felt a little bit like I was assigning their personalities to my children.
Oh,
And you're a mom, right?
yes.
Yes. And so how much of your kids' personalities are in Moana and Igbo's the other baby, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I've never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. Like I did write them as children and as when you have more than one child, they like compete for resources, they compete for your attention, and that's a lot of what they're doing. Especially since in the second book, you get to see a bit more of Drakkar and his grief and what he's working through. And they don't have a mother, and they really want their father's attention and approval, and he's struggling to give it to them. So they're like fighting over others' attention, trying to get it from other places. But it was fun writing them because I wanted to write them from the perspective of someone who is very young, and that even Asha gets to kind of have this motherly role over.
It is nice to see that because of how she mothered over the eggs and then getting to watch that interaction and that growth. I love the parallels between Asha losing her mother and Mwana and Igbo losing their mother, and like their interactions with their father, and just I wept when they were having their fight.
I wept writing it.
And it was just, it's like, oh, because it's so much Asha's world, and so very Asha centric. And then just like this very rattling moment of like, okay, you've got your little bachelorette drama going on over here, but like, I'm watching you hurt yourself after I have watched other Panos. Just intense. And yes. I was gasping, I was crying, I was, wincing whenever mean words were said. It was just really like an incredible treat and experience. And so, was Dragonblind like an immediate reaction to Game of Thrones, or was that just like an inspo? How did you start putting pen to paper?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it was a midlife crisis. I've gotten to the point in my life, because I work in mental health, but I kind of also work in corporate. And I was like, I need something else in my life. Like, I thought I would get to this point and everything would fall into place and I'd be so happy. And in the meantime, I put all of my creativity on the back burner. And so I just got to this point where I was like, I don't want to go to work anymore. I'm trying to be present as a parent and I'm failing miserably. And I just started writing. And so as much as Asha is based off of Daenerys, she's also based on me and me trying to figure out what I was wanting to do, and just realizing more facets of myself. So it was very cathartic. I say Dragonblind was the easiest book because I've written like probably 6 books. Just Dragonblind is published, but it's the easiest book I've ever written because it is a lot of based on me and the feelings that I was going through at that point in time. And then once it was done, I was like, oh, okay, all right, I think I have something here. So it was very cathartic.
I love it. And then you got Bride out pretty quickly after. So we met in, I think, February of this year. But Dragonblind was published last year, right?
In November.
Yeah. So you November, and then you've had Bride close to being done. And then it comes out we got 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it's coming fast. Yes.
Yeah. So what was the experience writing Bride versus Blind?
So it was much harder just because there's a lot of characters and loose ends and things that I needed to tie up. And then I also had to keep some things in mind for the third book. So I would write something and then I'm like, what about that character? I haven't talked to them in a long time. What are they doing? And just keeping the lore straight and consistent. And I really wanted to work on my writing skills because I'm not formally trained in writing or anything. So I wanted to improve those skills. And so it was a lot harder, but still I'm a fast writer. So I do quick drafts. So I think I got Bride done in a month's time. And what was cool about writing it, even though it was harder, I trusted myself more.
There you go.
So I think Dragon Blind, I probably did like 40 revisions of that book. Even though it was wonderful as is, I didn't trust my writing. Whereas with Bride, I started to trust myself more.
I love that. So, was it ever in your mind to write a, well, I guess if you've written six other books hanging out in your drafts folder, being an author was sort of on your mind?
Yeah, since I was a kid, I joined creative writing classes. I wrote stories for my high school paper. And so, like, that was written in yearbooks that she's going to be a writer someday. And then, like, there was a voice in my head, it's like, you're not going to make any money doing that. You need to find something that's going to make you money. So then I put it to the side. But from an early age, I can remember loving to read, loving to write. My parents' favorite story to tell is that they didn't have to teach me to read. I learned on my own at age 3. I don't know how true that is, but they love to tell that story.
Your parents are so crazy proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
I love, for some context for the listeners who haven't heard me talk about Dragon Blind before, typically your dad comes in with the restocks. And the only reason we haven't seen him this month is that this month Kanara Bookstore has your books on in their case, because that is the book club pick that they're reading this month, so they can be ready for Dragon Bride. But every time that he comes in, I mean, this man's chest all puffed out.
Aww,
and he's like, I'm gonna read it. And I was like, I don't know that it's really a book for you, but it is so sweet that you want to.
Yes, exactly.
And then I cracked up because I often tell people, like, Dragon Blind's not super spicy. It's very romantic. It is not super spicy. Dragon Bride, you went
Yes.
in for it, and there's so much like will they, won't they, and like complicated feelings, and a lot of really good swoon. Like you built this really gorgeous fantasy world, and then you really leaned into the romantasy part of it, and I enjoyed the heck out of that.
Oh, thank you.
And then I cracked up because I was like, well, I guess it's really not that bad to like suggest that he read it, because those spicy bits are kind of, quick. And but then that one I was like, oh yes, the dedication to your parents in Dragon Bride is like, probably skip this one. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that.
That's the one.
That's the one to just ask her for a quick synopsis. And
Yes.
so you spent the time between the two books kind of honing your craft a little bit. What were you doing in that time?
Yeah, I read a lot. The books that I really loved, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, what is it I love about this writing? Can I recreate some of these things? I took a few like online courses, quick courses on creative writing, especially about voice and how to figure out where to find your voice in your writing. But yeah, those are the basic things that I did. Also just a lot of it is just trusting, like writing something and going, you know what? That's not terrible. That's not terrible.
I'm not too bad at this.
Yes, exactly.
I've loved it because in that time that you've been writing and honing your craft, and being a mom and being a working person, you've also been really putting in the effort to market your book.
Yes.
So you spent weekend before last out enjoying the romantasy world. You want to talk a little bit about the things you've gotten to do?
Yeah. I've gotten to go to 2 balls. So the most recent one was the Faye Ball in Kansas City. And actually I got to meet a lot of people from Tulsa at that ball. This is like one of the closer places. But it's just a lot of fun. I do really well just selling things at balls like that because it's right in the prince realm of things. And people just love it. So I had a great time there. It's also cool to be around other authors who have the same interests. Because when I talk to just regular people in my life, they're like, oh, that's cool. But like, they don't love it the way that I love it. And so just being around other people who love it is really great. So I've done those. I've gone to a few other events pretty locally that have been great. There's only been one that like didn't go so well. And of course that one was the most expensive, but you know what? I learned a lot from that experience. And then, I've been just very transparent about my journey. And that was one of the ones that got, a lot of views because I think so many authors understand that feeling and have experienced it. And like, finally, somebody's talking about this. Like you don't always sell out at every event.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of people at your table that are like, wow, it's a great day for sales? And you're like, I've been here 8 hours and I sold 2 books. And I was super excited when I sold those 2 books.
Yes.
But now I'm getting kind of tired.
Exactly. So, but yeah, even though I wasn't selling a lot, I learned a lot from the people around me who did events all the time. Do this, try this. And they're like, sometimes it's just like that. And you have to accept it and try to find something that you can take back with you.
Yeah. That's like the really fulfilling thing about doing those events is that you always meet people and you're like, finding this connection and this community. And, it's a common theme, when I'm talking to authors here about like writing is such a singular alone event where you're just kind of scooping your thoughts onto a page. And so sometimes you're like, I don't know if this is any good. I don't know if the marketing I'm doing is working. I don't know if any of this is worth my time. And so like getting to sit with other people who have gone through that, you're suddenly like, okay, this is what it's about, is connecting with people and sharing a story. And, I just think that that's a really wonderful benefit of like author fairs and literature expos that people don't really think about. And that I think maybe if authors talked about it more with each other, so like on the online circuit, like, hey, this is how you reach people and get a little bit of like a very personal fulfillment, even if it's not the most successful at selling a book. But you've been having a crazy good couple of sales months with your book. Yeah. What spurred that?
I've been taking a deeper look at it, the whole journey, and I really think it comes down to figuring out who my audience is and talking to that audience. Yes, I've had a few viral videos, but I actually looked at one in April and one in May, and the one in May had fewer views, but it sold more books. And it's because I'm talking to my audience. So once you figure out who your audience is, then you can figure out how to speak to them in a way that gets them interested to give you a chance. Because it's a big thing to take a chance on somebody you haven't heard from before. So I definitely understand that, and I appreciate everyone who's willing to do that.
I love that. It's an easy risk to take, because the book is such a beautiful production, and you're self-published, right? And so like you took the time to get an illustrator who made just this crazy stunning artwork.
Yes.
You worked with the same person on both, right?
For the second one.
I was like, they both have very, very similar art styles. I'm like, I'd be shocked if it was someone different. What was the process of finding somebody to design this cover?
I knew it had to look a certain way. So I spent a lot of time on Instagram just looking through photos. And then finally I came across a book that it had nothing to do with what I was doing, but it was just so beautiful. I mean, it stopped me and I just kept looking at it. And finally I said, I'm just going to reach out to her and ask who did her artwork. And she was very kind and shared. And so I found that person on Instagram and we just hit it off right away. And I couldn't have so what's funny is I gave her a picture of a girl and a horse. And I said, I just need the horse to be a dragon. So she didn't have a whole lot to go off of, but her first sketch of it, I was like, that's it. That is it. So, but yeah, I couldn't have even imagined how beautiful it would be.
It's stunning. And then my ARC package came and it included that that art print
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm guessing that's Asha and Adriel on the very first night they met.
The first night
Oh
we met.
my
Yes.
goodness. Alexa play Lord Huron, like, I cry.
Oh.
Just insane. I love the intention and the care and like
Mm-hmm.
again, it's all about like making those connections, and that creates like not only a meaningful experience for you, which is nice to have with your writings, to have these meaningful experiences and exchanges, but also that it was somebody that could then take that experience and turn it into these gorgeous covers, that just they tell me the heart of the book so very much. um and like that was when you brought your book in to sell to the store, I was immediately like, I want a copy right
Oh,
now.
yes.
And I'm like, I don't need any more information about it, because what I can tell is that this is somebody having a very deep connection with a dragon. And then boom, it was,
Mm-hmm.
even more satisfying than Fourth Wing to watch these two come into their own mind. I want to talk a little bit about your writing process. So you're a fast writer, which is good because you're a busy person. Your degree's in psychology, right?
Mm-hmm. Clinical psychology.
Clinical psychology. So you know how to get into mind. So when you're writing, even before you took classes on finding a voice, how much of your psychology work kind of bled into your writing?
Yeah, a lot, even from the conception of it, because I was thinking about, the society that values physical strength and instead over emotional strength. And when you're in mental health, emotional strength is super important and it's often overlooked. And so I thought about, what if I had a character that had a lot of emotional intelligence and use that to fight wars, and beat the men who underestimate her. So there was a lot that went into it. In the first book, there's a lot of themes on PTSD, and I thought about even like what would heal this person who is struggling with this. And so there's even for people who are familiar with EMDR, which is a PTSD treatment, there's like even a hint of that in there. I would say the second book, though, is more about grief. And I spent a lot of time in the grief world. So, yeah, so it influenced it a lot.
Damn. Just I'm thinking about Asha's Battle Mage, and I'm like, oh my god.
That's basically her battle mage.
I love that. What a like fun little Easter egg. I feel like when I was reading Dragon Bride, there was a little Easter egg too, and I was so deep into it that I was like, I'm just gonna highlight this and I'm gonna think to ask her later, and maybe I'll check Dragon Blind. Where Adriel says, "As you wish, princess." Are you a Princess Bride
I
fan?
am. I am. I love that scene. So, and I had thought about taking it out. And I was like, no, I'm just going to leave it in. And if it bothers me later, I'll take it out. But no, I love it.
Oh man,
So.
it brought so much joy. And I was like, because that's like so swoony.
Uh-huh.
But then I see that and I'm like, I'm dead. I've melted. I'm a puddle.
Yeah.
I don't know how she's coming back from that.
Yes.
Just what a treat. Are there other Easter eggs that people might have overlooked?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, I actually am going to start, like, outlining the book this week, the third book, because, like, I feel like I have to read the first book and the second book, and I've done that to be able to get to the last one, but there's a ton of Easter eggs and things you're going to be like, of course, that's why it's like that. And I am always fearful that I'm being too obvious on the things, but I think people are so like, because the first book ends on a cliffhanger and the second book does as well. So they're just like trying to grapple with that. And I think if you read it 2 or 3 more times, you'll probably see where it's going.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm going to have to go back and reread Blind and see how this is all coming together because like the more I ruminate on it, and like I said, I 45 minutes between talking to
Yes.
you, and to really like sit with what I had just read. But as you clearly knew this was going to be a series because on Blind it says Lightbearer series #1. So
Mhm.
you're like definitely going to be one. Um, how much of the events of book 2 and book 3 and more, if there are more, um, are already kind of like in your mind? Like, I definitely want to take this story these places.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to end with book 3, and that has a little bit to do with my attention span. Whenever books get to 4 and 5, like I lose interest. I need to go and be in a different world. So, yeah, it's definitely going to end at 3. But I just asked myself, like, what does Asha need to learn in each of these books? And can I do that in 3? And I mean, it honestly, the story could continue, but I think 3 is enough. And yeah, I just wanted to explore certain themes in each book.
Mhm. Would you ever consider like some prequel vignettes or
I've
anything?
thought about that because if I did something like that, I'd probably just put it free on my newsletter and my website. Because there is a love story that happened before everything, and I included it in the second book, and then I took it out because it felt like information dumping, and I was like, the reader doesn't really need to know that stuff, but maybe I'll save it for a novella. So there might be a novella.
Is that Mirren and Kane?
Um,
That's just my guess.
that but also, and I should know the names of my own characters, but it's even before Asha came to be the original people in
Oh,
the
yeah,
book.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the original love story.
I love that. So
Mhm.
we've got prequel lists, and you've definitely like you hinted at it a lot, and I'm glad that you're like
Mhm.
you've got it in your mind that you might share that stuff because like, well, I want to read the books with them. She's just
Yes.
like giving a little rundown real quick, like here's what you need to know about this island and this rift, and I'm like, I want to read
Yes.
it too. But I think that's fair because you've given us a very digestible
hmm
fantasy in an era of massive tomes. And I love the massive tomes, but sometimes I also just want to like feel like it's going to be okay that I sit down and read the entire thing in like one
Yes.
go because I can't justify an 800-page book in one
Yes.
go, and
Exactly.
especially not as a mom.
hmm
Um, and in that realm, what do you it's a two-part question really, is what did you like to read before you wrote these books, and what did you read to get in the mindset to write Dragon Bride?
So I have, since I was a kid, really loved romance. So I remember reading like kind of teen, like YA romance books.
Hmm.
And then I got really into fantasy books, but like if they didn't have at least a romantic subplot, I would typically get bored. So then the term romantasy got really big, and I was like, that is exactly what I love to read. And so it was a no-brainer that I would write a romantasy book because that's what I love to read.
I love that.
Absolutely.
And so when you were writing Dragon Bride, you were reading a bit more romantasy.
Yeah. So When the Moon Hatched was and Sarah A. Parker, she writes in such a way that is just so beautiful and lyrical and the opposite of what I write. But I learned so much from reading and understanding her world. So hers was one of the big ones. Fourth Wing, of course. I would say those are the big two, but there's some other ones that I've read as well. But I'd say those are the two big inspirations.
I love that. And I can definitely see like the slight shift into a little bit more lyrical, there's some very poetic prose
Mm.
in Dragon Bride that I was like, ooh, this is like,
Yeah.
oh,
And it always surprises me. I'm like, oh, I just wrote that.
you're like, wow. Not only is this okay, but actually I'm really good at this.
Yes,
No,
yes.
it was a really nice shift too. Like it matched the theme more of like this there's so much yearning in
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Bride that, Blind was very like, we got to survive this. And also we're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
growing in a way that was unexpected. And then Dragon Bride is just people yearning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that lent really well to this shift to a little bit more artsy language,
Yeah.
to describe love and to describe grief, because like those are things that they're so big that sometimes it's hard to describe them in very grounded terms, and you
Yes.
need to be kind of flowery to process both ends of the spectrum of like being so in love and wanting something so bad and also hurting so bad as a result of loving something so much. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool to see how that like influenced what you've written.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
So you spend a lot of time working, because as
Yes.
much as we love to writing
Uh-huh.
is work, and your job and your kids, and what are some things that you like to do to kind of like step back from the work to breathe and allow yourself to feel human?
I would say probably reading is my biggest escape. I actually have started to like doing events, so that even though that's work, it doesn't feel like it when I'm doing it. And then I like to be in nature. I like to go to places that remind me of places that I want to write in a book. I like to do things with the kids. But yeah, it does feel like I'm doing two full-time jobs right now and being a mom.
Which is like two more full-time
Yes.
jobs. We love them, but it takes so much brain capacity, and I can
Mhm.
definitely see how an event like being a moment where you're just like, this is my singular focus, is connecting with people in hopes that they want to hear more of my stories. And
Mhm.
I love that. So you have six other books in some kind of finished capacity. Are what kind of themes are you exploring in those?
So, I think the next book that's going to be published this year is a historical romance, and it's about Tulsa. It's about Greenwood and Black Wall Street. So that's been really fun to write. It's been fun to talk to my mom about it because she grew up here and she wasn't alive during all of that, but she heard stories. And so she would tell me some of the stories that were passed down to her. And that's been really fun. And then like when I come into a stumbling block because I'm struggling to even find articles about something I'm trying to write about. She's like, "Oh, you could talk about this, or you could talk about this." So it's been kind of fun to bounce ideas off of her.
I love that. That's, you know, just thinking about Tulsa's history, and it's been a big like 2 weeks of Tulsa history on all kinds of
Hmm.
historical moments in Tulsa. It's such a well documented and not well documented, but an interesting like time of oral history being passed
Hmm.
down, which feels so very like true to
Hmm.
Oklahoma's roots of like
Yes.
passing oral history down. Um, but what got you? I guess it was just mom talking, or
Yeah, and I grew up around that area. I remember learning about, and it's also always called the Tulsa Race Riot, which I think is really interesting, but rather than Tulsa Race Massacre,
Mhm.
which is really what it was, and how it was literally buried for years. And we still don't know how many people lost their life to it. And it's just interesting how it's even taught in school. But I
Mhm.
think what fascinated me the most is we had this time in history where the Black community came together and said, okay, the white people don't want our dollars, so we're just going to pool our money. And they did it. Like they were successful. They had their own movie theater, their own schools, I mean, their own hotel, like luxury hotel. Like those things are fascinating to me. And there aren't really books that talk about it. There are a few out there that'll talk about the massacre, but they won't talk about like what the
Yeah.
Black community
They really
built.
treat Black Wall Street as like this footnote prologue moment to the Tulsa Race Massacre. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, but like, let's explore the economics of that and like the impact that it was having on the white community until they shut it all down.
Yeah.
And then, there's conversation and rumblings about the revival of Tulsa's Black Wall Street and like, you know, the efforts to get the Dreamland Theater rebuilt and studies on what if we got rid of that chunk of the IDL that cuts directly through it and
Yes.
is on this historic land and damages Vernon AME. I vote at Vernon AME, so every time I'm over there voting, I'm like, this highway.
Yes.
But there's so much to grapple with the massacre that I think people forget that part of what made it so horrific was the beauty that was there before it, and then what could be if we would just like stop acting up.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, and trying to find records of what it looked like and what it was to be an affluent Black member of that community. That's been what's toughest to find in the records, and so I find myself just recreating it and imagining it as I would have liked to see it. And in all of my writing, and I tell people this all the time, I want to focus on the beauty of the Black community. It's why I write Asha the way that I do. And in this book, it's called Meet Me in Greenwood. I write mostly about that. So like the massacre is there, but it's very small compared to the wonderful world of Black Wall Street.
And really like sit and revel in it. I think that's going to be like an incredibly important book. Is it going to be an adult?
Adult book, yeah. Yeah, and very romantic because I love romance. It has to be there. But yeah, there's a lot of history in there.
I love that. And very like radical in that approach to history, but also just like shows just how radical romance can be. I think it's something I talked a lot with Heather Dubree about when you're writing like romantasy, talking about how people kind of like poo-poo it because, oh, well, it's just like girlies want to have their little romance. And it's like, well, romance is life.
Exactly.
Like we wouldn't have civilization without romance, but also like it's such a great way to examine challenging topics. And like when you read romantasy, you talk about grief, you talk about PTSD, you talk about manipulation, you talk about governments and like fascism and taking over and giving like rebelling and like the kind of hope that a romantic connection can suddenly overturn an entire government structure in this entire realm. And like, I think it's fun to see the power of that romance now put into a romantic historical, and allow people to maybe access other important parts of history and important themes and grapple with them in a very like digestible way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It's very approachable, and it's something that like we all universally can identify with, even if you're not a person of color, even if you're not a Black person, like that is something that we all understand is loving someone and what it can get us to do, or even how it can help us change our minds about things. Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited to read it. I'm so angry. I was talking about this before we hit record that I love reading advanced copies because I'm such a like instant gratification kind of person. And when I have access to ARCs, like I'm a monster. But I also like getting into a series and then reading the advanced copy of the next one and leaving on a cliffhanger. And this is the point where you might want to like turn off if you well, most people, this will come out on Friday, so no, very few people will have read Dragon Bride by then. Um, so I'll mark in the show notes too where they can pick this back up.
Okay.
But the cliffhanger that you left Dragon Bride on, very much like Onyx Storm, in that there's memory missing, and a man that we now have to save. He's changed somehow. Was that always where you were going to take it? I mean, there was clearly like some hints at what was about to happen.
Yeah, I think what I struggled with at the beginning of writing the second book is I couldn't decide who was going to lose their memory, if it was going to be Asha, my main character, or if it was going to be Adriel. And
I really thought it was going to be Asha. You laid those, and I fell for every single trap. I was like, yeah, obviously Asha's going to lose her memory to help save Kwasi. That's her whole MO, is take care of my brother, the one brother who's ever been good to me. And then you were like, actually it's Adriel. And I was like, no.
Oh, yes. So, and it's because in the third book, like at this whole time, all of these men have been pining after her, and she's like, I don't know what I want. And if she's going to end up with Adriel, she needs to choose him. And so that's what the third book is laying out, is she ready to choose him? Is that what she wants for herself?
I love that Adriel's very much like you have to make up your mind, and I will not force you into my bed. I will not force you into my life. And like, just when we thought we were going to get like some semblance of a happy rest, and then just bam.
Yes.
And I could see that's the worst part. So, I left my paperback at home, and so I was reading my ebook version, and I saw that I was at 99%, and I was like, oh no, this isn't going to get resolved right now. I'm going to have to wait. So, oh man. But before you really started writing book 2 and you were reading, how much of Onyx Storm determined this change? Because it feels very much like Satan turning Venom.
Yeah, I think... Let's see, Onyx Storm. So I actually wrote this in November because I had some time off, November, December. Onyx Storm came out in February, or no, January.
Yes.
And so it was already written before I read Onyx Storm.
What?
I know. I know. Authors think alike, man. But yeah, I'm just now putting that timeline together. But yeah, this was written last year.
I love that. That's so thrilling, and just, this whole idea of men changing. I also really enjoy the fact that we're putting a lot of the men have been put into a damsel in distress, which is nice to see, because at no point has Asha really needed rescuing. She's always been the one to escape, and she was already on her way out. And the closest you get really is Drakkar saving her a little bit, but really just her leveraging the bond to help this tool at her disposal, this friend that she knows she can count on, and understanding that he is someone she can count on. And you see a little bit of a parallel with that with Zephyr and Mirren, in her being flung out the window and then getting caught. Like you have to be able to trust me, because I can't save you. You're going to have to do that, but you need to know that you have this very powerful tool at your disposal. So it's super neat and wonderful. And what a feminist book to have this woman who's so very strong and so very sure. And she's just constantly getting men out of the debacles they've put them into.
Yes, exactly.
So this deal that they've made to make this Phoenix
of Tears,
the Phoenix of Tears, was there ever any consideration in making Asha part of that bargain, or that any of the characters would let her in on what's going on? Because I know they were in the memory very we can't tell anyone about this, but
no, I never wanted Asha to know. I wanted her to find out at the very end, because And it's some of the critique, and I think it's valid in the first book, is that Adriel's kind of an asshole. He's morally gray. And so people would tell me, I kind of hate your NMC. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So the second book really needed to be his redemption arc. And so he's doing all of this for Asha. He's choosing Asha, but she doesn't know that yet. She doesn't know it till the end. So that's why I didn't want her to know until the end.
So painful watching, bless her heart, I can't remember her name, but his betrothed through most of it.
Yeah.
Just like so painful how aware she is of Adriel's feelings for Asha, even though she's like, is anyone going to tell me exactly what went down between the two of you? And they're like, no, nothing. I hated that guy, but like, I guess I sort of liked him a little bit more at the end of our travels, but like,
yes.
just heartbreaking for her.
Yeah.
She just wants to be loved by a cute guy and get married on a boat.
Yes. And she's got big dreams for herself. She's also someone who recognizes power and wants power. So that was kind of fun to play with. I didn't want to make her evil. I wanted her to be more naive and whimsical and wanting this beautiful life with someone. And now she's kind of grown up and she's seen what this is really about.
It's just like very interesting, the two parallels of like marriage as power, because she recognizes that a powerful marriage will benefit her, and she wants to be involved in that. But she's kind of still letting her father like wield that power. Whereas Asha is like, all right, this major bargaining chip that I have is marrying me.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I'm going to leverage that. In both books, leverages her hand to control these men, who I don't even think they realize like just how much they're getting played by her saying, yeah, I'll marry you. Yeah, I'll marry you. And like her then seeing this chance with Adriel to be like, I could marry him and it wouldn't necessarily be about manipulating, but just letting my heart choose something. And it's really cool. I love a little literary analysis of like characters' journeys. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's fun to write the secondary characters and like what would they want out of this situation, and what are their hopes and dreams? What are they going to be frustrated about? Kitschy is the one person that I felt like I kind of put her on the back burner because I want her to have like this epic love story, and there wasn't time to really build that. So I hope I have time in the third book. Otherwise, it's going to be in a novella somewhere because I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I like all the little nods and the little loves, and I'm very devastated about certain deaths.
Yes.
I won't spoil the whole darn thing for everybody, but I was heartbroken, and I appreciated that it was not labored upon. There wasn't time really to labor upon it, but that it was just like, here's the very cold, sad truth of the reality. And Adriel grapples with it, and then Asha grapples with it, and then we've got other stuff to do, but it's like, oh man, and I didn't realize how much I loved that character. I was like, oh, what a fun little guy. And then that happened, I was like, oh, now I'm devastated. Yes. And there's also so much to go. How did you decide? I guess it is a natural ending point to then lead into a book, but like, did you ever think about making that happen a little earlier in the book, or maybe?
Yeah, so the ending changed so much, and it was because I got feedback from a developmental editor, and she basically said the last 60 pages or so, like, that's a book in its own, and she's like, you need to figure out how to end it sooner and start up again. So that was my toughest thing, was to figure, well, where do I end this thing then? That death definitely felt like, okay, that feels like a good place to end, and we'll pick back up in the next book.
I thought that.
Yeah.
So, welcome back if you skipped through past the spoilers. 'Cause we're going to kind of pull it into um, more just a general conversation with my final question. And I always say it's the final question, but it like usually spurs like another 15 minutes of conversation. But what is something that has like surprised you or has been very interesting for you as you kind of move from this insular writing your book into being an author?
Yeah, so in order for people to read your books, you got to put yourself out there. And I am an introvert. I'm like super introverted. It's interesting because I'm like a director, so I manage lots of people, and I don't know how I do it because it feels very uncomfortable for me. And it's the same with marketing my book. Like I struggle to do it sometimes. But I try to remember that nobody knows the story like I do. And I just need to find people who will fall in love with it the same way I did writing it. And it'll spread. So, but yeah, when you are self-publishing, you are starting basically a business and you are everything. So you are doing everything on your own. There's a few people you could pay to do certain things like cover art and things like that, but for the most part, you're doing everything on your own. And so that's been the hardest thing, is figuring out how to push myself in spaces that maybe I'm not the most comfortable in, and finding ways for me to manage it and still have fun doing it. So I've been surprised that I like doing events. I'm shocked that I can put my face on camera and do TikToks and Instagram and things like that. So I always think about what would happen if my staff found my social media, my patient, like because I'm such a different person on camera, but also like this is me. And I'm actually probably hiding my true self when I'm at work, trying to be professional and all of that.
I guess that like leads into like a little like bonus question. Like, so Iman Christians is your name.
Uh-huh.
And I talked to Heather a lot about like this kind of risk that feels like using like I don't write under a pen name either. And I didn't even when I was teaching. So like any of my students could have looked up my name at any point and found my book, which has adult content in it. And like, you know, was there ever like a thought behind maybe putting it to a pen name?
Yeah,
Or?
I thought about it for a long time. No pen name seemed right. And I've always been really proud of my name. I've always really loved it. And I put so much effort into getting people to say it correctly that I was like, to pick a different name, it just never felt right. So, yeah, it was always going to be my name. And Christians is actually my married name. And so I'd say really the only debate was whether I was going to use my maiden or my married name. But I told my husband when we got married, like socially, my last name is Christians. And so it just felt right to use that name.
Was there anything you want to share or add to the?
Um, no, I will say that you were the very first bookstore that I pitched my book to. I'm super nervous because like people, they talk about how to do it online and you're just scared that they're going to be like, why would I put your book in my store? And you were so lovely.
Oh,
And that gave me the confidence to start pitching to other bookstores. And so I've been able to do that successfully and teach other people how to do it because they have the same fears.
yeah.
But yeah, you made it a really lovely first experience.
It's such a joy to be a part of it. And I think I really gotta say like Magic City doing their author bash last year, like gave me the push I needed to be like, yes, you people can confidently like I can refer to myself as an author and like I can take ownership of that. And they put out the open call for authors, but I was like, well, it's easy enough for this self-published person to go forth and all I had to do was sign a form and say this is what my book's about, and suddenly I'm able to sell a book there. And when we when we opened this, we always knew that we wanted to bring local authors in there. And also part of that is because I still had like a box of books. I ordered so many for the fair, which was great, and I sold a lot, and like, but I had a huge box of books still of mine. And I was like, well, if I'm going to put myself on the shelf, and I knew that I was going to put Lear Gray, who I need to get more books from her. When Lear and I were talking, and I was like, well, I'm opening this bookstore, so I'll carry your book when it comes out. It's like, well, if I'm going to do these two self-published authors, then like, I want to be a space where the barrier is low to getting a book on a shelf. And like, in doing that, and the conversations I've had with other booksellers, is that it isn't a unique thing to be like, yeah, come on in, self-published authors. But it is a unique thing to have the guts to do that, which is the big hurdle. And like, you know, I appreciate the compliments about being like nice about it, but I really truly am just like, that's the philosophy. I want to be able to platform local authors, and I want to make people feel like they can go do that at other ones. And that was literally on Threads this morning. Somebody was like, what if I just went into a store and put my book on a shelf? And I was like, well, first of all, what a nightmare, because sometimes, you know, sometimes before I had really like given my booksellers the heads up, I would sometimes come in and there would be a book on the local author shelf, and I'm like, I know I didn't okay that, and like I would have, and I will, but like, oh no, how did this get here? If I scan it, is it going to show up as something in my inventory? And I was like, what a nightmare it would be for me to show up and nobody knows how that book got there. Because the couple that did show up, I was like, oh hey, who met this author? And they're like, oh hey, it was me, here's their contact info, if you can send them the consignment link and like all of that. But I was like, but if you just, instead of doing that, which it sounds like you're nervous about that, and I want to tell you that it would just make everything very complicated, use the guts that you would have to do that, to find the owner and say hey. And I loved and appreciated, like, I encourage people to do what you did, what Dave did, what Scott did. Most everybody on here came in and had a personal conversation with me. And that's like such a powerful, like, at minimum, I get to say, oh yes, I've made FaceTime with this person, and so I can talk a little bit more knowledgeably about the book they're trying to sell. But it also often ends up in like really cool personal conversations. Like when I talk about your dad coming in, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, this has happened. Or, you know, this person came up very nervously and their friends had to be like, go ask, you know, talking about, well, how did you hear about me? Oh, I was in this writing group, or, you know, I saw this post, and getting to have those personal connections. Again, that's, I mean, it's how you sell a book. It's how you sell a book to a bookstore. Like, and it's a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling for me.
Good.
I just love it. So.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I can't imagine finding a book and you're like, I don't know how this got here.
Like, what a panic. Because usually when that happens, I'm like, oh, is this like from the used shelf? Because we buy used books anytime that we're open. And so I'll be like, I don't recognize this, because I personally select everything on the on these shelves except for Kayla's shelf. And with Kayla's stuff, I know it's there because she and I talk about it. And so I'm like, is this like a used book? And they're like, no, it's over there on your shelf. And I'm like, oh no. Now I look goofy.
Oh goodness.
But you can, with confidence, pick up Dragonblind at Kanara Bookstore's pop-ups, typically at Jones Coffee Company. You can also pick them up off of the Kanara bookshelf here at Meadow Market Books for at least this month, and then we'll probably go back to just having you on the local shelf in our fabulously growing local author section.
Oh, awesome.
So thank you so much for listening to Paper Girl Podcast. Next up on the schedule, we have Laura Vogt talking about her debut in The Great Quiet. Dragon Bride, the sequel to Dragonblind and Book 2 in the Lightbearer series, comes out June 30th, and you will be able to find copies here. Absolutely, for sure. And be prepared for me to yap at you about it. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you again for coming on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Awesome.